Peace, love, and blessings, fam. Johnny Sally here with day number 48 of Wisdom of the Ages by Wayne W. Dyer. If you've missed the previous recordings, you can go back on TikTok and look for them. They are in order. You can go to YouTube and catch the previous recordings at Loyalty Life, spelled Lyfe, Legacy, LLC. Let's get into number 48, Highest Self. I came out alone on my way to my tryst. But who is this? Me in the dark. I move aside to avoid his presence, but I escape him not. He makes the dust rise from the earth with his swagger. He adds his loud voice to every word I utter. He is my own little self, my Lord. He knows no shame. But I am ashamed to come to thy door in his company. By Rabindranath Tagore. One of the leading personalities of modern India, mystic and painter, Rabindranath Tagore received the Nobel Prize for Literature. His works are classics, renowned for their lyrical beauty and spiritual poignancy. There are two people living inside of each of us. The first person I call ego. Ego wants to be right. Ego also believes that he is separate from everyone else and that he is competing with all those others. He feels that his very existence depends on being better than everyone else. Consequently, he strives to have not only more things, but more expensive things. He feels best when he is able to defeat someone else, and thus he elevates his worth as a person on the basis of how he stacks up to all others he so desperately wants to conquer. If he is number one, this is his dream come true. But being in the top 10% is still pretty good, and staying on top in the top half is absolutely essential. Ego not only loves to win, he needs it desperately, and he is always in a state of striving. He wallows in his achievements, counts his awards, rewards, and badges of honor frequently. Ego can have the nicest cars, fanciest clothes, finest foods, most spectacular drugs imaginable, kinkiest sex, and all manner of pleasures. And when they have all worn off and become passe, a brand new list of demands appears. Ego is impossible to satisfy as long as there is someone out there whom he must defeat, or more stuff to buy and own so that he can be a winner. He strives, but he never arrives. The second person residing inside each of us I call Spirit. He is not interested in any of the same things that capture the fancy of ego. He could care less about acquiring anything. He is not the least bit interested in being better than anyone else, let alone in defeating others. In fact, he never even compares himself to anyone. He only seems to want one thing, and is single-minded when it comes to this desire. Spirit overlooks all the needs of his omnipresent twin, ego, and desires only to be at peace. Yes, spirit is the desire to be at peace. When it comes to competition, he will compete, but he never feels any need to lord it over those who also compete. When it comes to possessions, spirit truly enjoys them, but never seems to be possessed by them, and is just as likely to give them away. While the mantras of ego include more and better, Spirit's mantra is always the same: peace. He radiates this peace to others and promotes this kind of tranquility at all times, even in the midst of chaos. And I will say, those who are in a state of chaos does not understand what peace is. And if there is a level of peace reflecting back the mirror of chaos, it can be very disheveling to someone who only knows chaos. Here they are then, our two constant inner companions, ego and spirit. The question is not how to slay one in favor of the other, but how to subdue the part that keeps us in a perpetual state of turmoil and never allows any peace. How can we move from striving to arriving? I ask myself this question many times in the course of a day. Who am I allowing to run things here? And In fact, I wrote an entire book on the subject, maybe to help myself understand the power I had given to my ego in my own life. I called it Your Sacred Self, and it is devoted to the themes of Tagore's famous dialogue with Lord Krishna at the beginning of this essay. How can we tame the part of ourselves that feels separate from everyone else and needs to be conquered? And needs to conquer, win, and acquire in order to feel good. I'll read that again. How can we tame the parts of ourselves that feel separate from everyone else and needs to conquer, win, and acquire in order to feel good? I have borrowed thoughts from famous poets like Tagore and Rumi, who are essentially contributors not only to this book, but to my daily life, and created the following prayer that I say each morning on my way to beginning the day. Dear Divine Creator of all, my ego is demanding, pushy, obsessed with being right, and is always in search of more. It never seems to be satisfied. My sacred self is inclined to being peaceful, non-competitive, non-judgmental, and it never makes demands. Please send messages from one to the other. Tagore, in his dialogue with the Divine Creator, Lord Krishna in this context, is doing much the same thing. He wonders, who is this me in the dark that he cannot seem to escape? Who is this who swaggers through life with his self-importance infecting every word, who is shameless? But also he recognizes that the entranceway to the highest realm is being blocked by this shameless little self. This poet was given the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913 for one of his greatest collections of poetry, yet felt no kinship with such an honor. He lived his life writing about how to rid oneself of identification with such prizes. Reading Tagore's sensitive poems and this particular piece offer each of us a valuable reminder of the benefits of subduing the ego and listening to the Spirit who beckons us to peace. The dust rising from the earth is the turmoil that will clog your life pores if you ignore Spirit and fail to see ego's responsibility for the dust. Tagore personified quiet dignity and a peaceful countenance in his life, which is reflected in his beautifully simple poem. Here are some suggestions for applying the wisdom of Tagore's poetry into your daily life. 1. Listen to your heart before you react to anyone. See if you can tame your ego once today. Before speaking, ask yourself, is what I am about to say for the purpose of making someone else wrong or proving myself special? Will I create more turmoil or more serenity? Then make the decision to be kind and loving. Notice how your ego reacts and allow it to take a less dominant role once or twice a day until it becomes a habit, a new way of being. 2. Be aware of how frequently you use I in conversation and see if you can let your sentences begin with you a few times each day. Pass up the need to brag and boast in favor of applauding the accomplishments of others. 3. Work at being less attached to the things you've accumulated and begin to practice letting go. Giving more of yourself to others by giving some of your stuff away is a helpful way to tame the attachment to acquisitions and to retrain ego and allow the peace that Spirit desires. And 4, converse with your ego in much the same way I do in my daily prayer. Speak from your highest self. Here is an example of a letter to her ego that Shirley Ross Kerber wrote to me after reading Your Sacred Self. Journaling is a daily routine for me and has been for 13 years. This AM I wrote a letter in my journal to my ego. It is as follows. Dear ego, you are hereby given notice that we have a new leader. You are welcome to stay on as a silent partner. I, my sacred self, am taking over my life and my business. I have brought in the number one consultant in the universe, the divine creator of all beings. And the divine creator of all and I will confer on the restructuring of my life and my business. You will no longer have a voice in any of my decisions. I have no bad feelings towards you, but it is not in my best interests or those of my business to allow you to influence my decisions. I myself needed that prayer because it's a fine line between what the ego is supposed to represent in helping you develop who you are and the continuation of it into your elder years of life. Recently, I've had many things that have came out of the blue and caught me off guard. And I've had to relinquish the need to correct, the need to help people when they don't realize they're wrong. And there's a certain part of me that I always feel like I was enabling someone if I didn't. So in dealing with the likes of Lord Krishna, specifically and especially Lord Shiva, Lady Kuan Yin, and Amitabha Buddha, they have been definitely helping me restructure my view on compassion. And my highest self has definitely been when I'm not paying attention. So I've been taking more of a point to allow my higher self to guide me, and that is following instruction. That is removing myself from the attachment or the need to control everything in my life. It's no different than yesterday with the speaking or the reading on self-actualization, which is directly connected to opening up the door to communing with your higher self. You begin to walk in ways that the average individual around you will not understand. It almost creates confusion in every aspect of communication of someone who is not of like mind, because they clearly cannot see any way that you are moving in connection to what your path is, opposed to how it may make them feel. So when you begin to take these steps into listening to your higher self, there are many times that everybody around you is going to disagree with you because they just don't understand and they just don't get it. And they will even make it a point to give you the benefit of the doubt of making it seem like if you just want to be right in every case. But when you begin to open your eyes spiritually, it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of doing what you know you have to do for the necessary cause, purpose, or situation before you that the other person may not see. So even in me having to release control, I appreciate Sister Layla for saying that this is a vlog, because I didn't notice it turned into such. But last Saturday, my entire section or division of the job I was working for was relinquished. And since then, I've just been having to make it work whatever way I can to bring finances in while also maintaining finances. So this year, my higher self had been getting on me about structuring my finances in a way that I'm not hurting, in a way that I'm able to do more in certain areas of my life than I normally would, that some may not even realize. They take it and it's a level of entitlement because it's seen as something I should be doing even though I don't have to. And the best thing that has been gifted to me is the idea and the understanding that, you know what, just keep moving the way your higher self is telling you to move. Just keep operating in the space of letting go of control and allowing doors to open for you. Now, I'm going to speak this today, that something miraculous is going to happen to me tomorrow in regards to finding a sustainable way of making finances that I actually love, because that's what Saturday was about, work. So you see how all of these readings are beginning to tie in together into my daily life without any control of my own. And I want you to know that when you begin to follow your higher self, your highest self, or whatever you would like to call it, because we give much credit to things outside of us that we don't even realize is actually your higher self, your ancestors, because they reside in your genetic coding, the gods that are surrounding you every day. And I say that to say and make the connection that they can empower you with certain aspects of themselves that become a part of you when you begin to listen to your higher self. And then the miracles of life begin to truly unfold. You begin to walk without fear, without doubt, without malice. And even when people say things that should harm or hurt you, you just brush it off. Sometimes the ego may want to get in the way and you feel like you have to let a person know how you feel. And because we're human, if so, be able to do it in love and light. And just know that your higher self will always guide you. Because if you don't pay attention, it will guide you in that way as well. So, I thank you for being here as always, more so for yourself than anything else. I ask that you walk in love, walk in light, walk in peace, continue to reach out to your higher self, and know that you are loved.